As she stepped into the school, Nora looked around, admiring the space. The Quinn School of Martial Arts was in the heart of New York. The school took up the entire building. It was an unusually large facility, but it just went to show how established and well-respected the school was. The students in the gym were divided into several classes, all of them shouting energetically as they trained. She rolled her eyes when she thought of how Quinn had exaggerated the school's weakened state. This didn't look anything like a school that was withered and dying out to her. She was annoyed that he was trying to trick her again. Nora scratched at her ears and said, "Tell me what the secret is and I'll decide after that." Quinn was at a loss for words. Everyone else was begging to be his student. Why was it so difficult to find a successor he liked? He had taken a lot of trouble to find Nora in the first place after her mother had turned him down. Nora was talented, but all she did was sleep. Fortunately, her 2 children had inherited her good physique. Quinn's gaze flicked over to Cherry. He thought about Pete, who was still inside the gym. Many people observed that the school style tended to suit boys better. Little Nora had challenged that stereotype with her great talents, but not every student was like her. After weighing the pros and cons, Quinn decided that his safest bet was to take Pete on as a student. Nora was always saying that Cherry wasn't very interested in martial arts anyway. Claiming Pete as his new student seemed like the better option. So, instead of saying anything else about it, Quinn coughed and said, "Forget it, I was just kidding." Nora had guessed that he wasn't being serious. Shrugging, she accompanied Quinn to the inner courtyard where he lived. Quinn was wearing his white uniform. Despite being advanced in years, he was thin and energetic. Although his voice was rough, he exuded a sense of careful attentiveness. Without these traits, he couldn't have become a master of the art. When the two entered the courtyard, Quinn stretched out his hand and gestured at Nora. "Come on, let's see if you've made any progress lately." Quinn leapt into an attack. Nora stepped back quickly and evaded him. Then she counterattacked, and they started to spar earnestly. Between master and student, every single move and action carried a subdued but sharp and fierce momentum. The pair had a good time sparring. Toward the end, even Nora broke out in a light sweat. She felt refreshed all over. After they were done, Quinn stretched out his wrists and remarked, "I'm surprised you've been able to maintain such a high level of skill, despite slacking off. You're a wild one indeed. If you took the time to practice, you would definitely surpass me." She shrugged and replied dispassionately, "I'll also be able to surpass you when I'm your age and you're not around anymore." Quinn was rendered so speechless by her retort that he couldn't be bothered to be mad anymore. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but ask persistently, "You really don't intend to have Cherry study martial arts?" Nora shook her head. She doesn't need it. Nora had practiced martial arts to train and strengthen her body. She had struggled with her weight and overall health at a young age. But Cherry had always been strong and healthy, even as a baby. Besides, Cherry was a little princess. The way her aunt had raised her had turned her into a very delicate little girl who wouldn't tolerate the discomfort of an activity like martial art. If Nora forced her to practice, she would probably burst into tears and start wailing. Nora figured it wasn't worth the trouble. Quinn had no choice but to give up. "It just figures that you'd have your mother's temperament too." Nora's interest was suddenly piqued. She asked, "Old man, did you know my mother? Can you tell me about her?" Quinn stroked his white beard and smiled as he replied, "Your mother, she was a legend in New York." Nora was taken aback. Quinn pointed to the table in the courtyard. Nora followed him and walked over. Although she was usually cheeky when she talked to him, she still knew how to demonstrate respect. After sitting down, she obediently picked up the teapot and poured him a cup of tea. Quinn sat on the bench and took a sip from his teacup. "When your mum was young, she was amazingly talented and brilliant. They called her the most talented woman in New York. At that time, many young men proposed to her. She brought a lot of pride to the Anderson family. Even the Hunts thought it would be an honor to have her in the family. She rejected them in the end, though." He chuckled. "She had a backbone, all right. I, for one, don't think much of the Hunts, especially that student of Irvin's." Quinn and Irvin always argued whenever they met. Nora listened with great interest. When she noticed that Quinn had finished his tea, she poured him another cup and pressed him to continue. And then? Quinn grunted and went on. I had just achieved some success in my training and made a name for myself. I wanted to take on a student, and I wanted it to be your mum. But she rejected my offer. After that, she disappeared. At this point, he stroked his beard and said, I don't know why she suddenly ran away from home. Some say that she was kidnapped for her beauty or something, but that's all nonsense. Besides, she was so fierce. Who would have been able to kidnap her? She then came to me 2 years later. She asked me to take you as my student when she became 5 or 6 years old and help you become strong and capable. She told me then that she was dying. Quinn sighed and said, By the time I found you with the information she gave me, she was already gone. He took her hand and said, But listen, don't be sad. She only lived to be 26 years old, but she had an exciting life. She lived well. There was just one person she let down. Curious to know more, Nora sat upright. Who was it? Quinn put down his teacup. Have you heard of the Smiths of New York? Nora shook her head. She needed so much rest every day, she didn't have much energy to keep up with news about all the wealthy and influential families. Quinn said, The Smiths and the Hunts were equally powerful, and they were really in fierce competition with each other back then. The previous head of the Hunt family was nothing compared to that Smith fellow. Your mum was engaged to him for a while. When I heard that your last name was Smith, I thought that she had been pregnant with his child. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Different Smith. Speaking of your father, what a pig. Your mum was so picky her entire life. How did she end up with a misogynistic scumbag like him? Nora didn't know. It puzzled her too. Anyway, the head of the Smith family at that time was a very ambitious man. With him leading the family, they nearly managed to surpass the Hunts in status and wealth. But when your mum went missing later, he fell into a deep slump. It gave the Hunts a chance to catch up, and the two families were even for a while. But when Justin Hunt took over the family business, he led them to completely surpass the Smiths. Quinn shook his head. After the head of the Smith family retired, he got his nephew to lead instead. I don't think he ever got over losing your mum. He never got married. Nora was astounded by what she heard. My mum really did let him down. Quinn nodded in agreement. Nora asked, What's his name? Quinn smiled and answered, Ian. Ian Smith. She suddenly thought of the company that her mother had left behind. Its name, Idealian Pharmaceuticals, had the name Ian incorporated into it. Then Quinn spoke again. You should know, there are rumours that he's become seriously ill. It sounds like he won't survive past this year. It's too bad, he was quite the hero back then. After he finished his last sips of tea, Quinn stood up and said, All right, you can rest here for a while. I'm going to go and check on the two children. Out of the corner of his eye, he had spotted Cherry and Pete secretly meeting up. He was itching to officially claim Pete as his student. After Quinn left, Nora thought carefully about her mother's past. It took several moments for her to realize what Quinn had said as he left. The two children. She hadn't seen any other small children apart from Cherry. Who was the other child? She stood up abruptly and walked toward the gym. Before Nora even entered the gym, she heard Quinn's voice coming from within. Steady, steady now. Persevere. This is a basic skill. This part right here is what makes us, the Quinn School of Martial Arts, better than the Irvin School. Martial arts aren't something that can be learnt overnight. You must take your time to lay a solid foundation. Nora pushed the door open and entered to see that apparently Cherry had changed into a set of men's sportswear at some point and was practicing her form. Quinn, who had his back to Nora, was talking to her. He said, Since you're now my student, you'll have to listen to what I say from now on. You must practice this stance for half an hour every morning after you wake up. Your mother is too lazy and has always been disobedient since she was a child. Don't be like her. Pete, as it really was Pete who was training, not Cherry, was facing the door and spotted Nora as she peeked in. He was lost for words. He pursed his lips and stood up straight. Surprised, Quinn exclaimed, "Why aren't you doing it anymore? You've given up already? You—" Pete interrupted him. "Mummy?" Quinn stiffened. Then he slowly turned around to see Nora leaning against the wall. Her arms were casually folded and her eyebrows slightly raised as she quietly watched the two of them. Quinn knew she tended to cause trouble when she adopted a casual attitude. He stammered. I'm Nora, this—" Nora asked. "Old man, did you tempt her with rewards or threaten her with punishment?" "Neither, it's nothing like that." Nora looked at Pete again and asked hesitantly, "Cherry, do you really want to learn martial arts?" Pete nodded firmly. He felt that if he learnt martial arts, he could protect his mum and Cherry the next time his dad was rude to them. Nora was stunned. Cherry took after her in personality and was usually lazy and easygoing. She disliked strict rules. Nora was surprised that she had taken an interest in martial arts. But she had always tried to respect Cherry's wishes. After thinking about it for another moment, she agreed. "All right." She looked at Quinn and said, "I'll send her here at 7 a.m. sharp tomorrow. But today we have a few more stops to make, so it's time for us to go." After she spoke, she stretched out her hand to Pete. Pete stepped forward, took her hand, and followed her out the door. Quinn was too stunned and dazed to stop them and tell her that it wasn't her daughter who she was leaving with. He was still in a daze when Cherry, who had just gone to the bathroom, ran over in her princess dress. "Huh? Where's Pete?" Quinn was at a loss for words. Right after Cherry spoke, her cell phone beeped. She picked it up and immediately saw a text message from Pete. "Cherry, I went home with Mummy. Daddy will pick you up in the evening. We'll switch back tomorrow." Cherry was excited to see her handsome daddy again. Cherry jumped up and took Quinn's hand. "Grandpa Quinn, when is Daddy coming to pick me up?" 5 o'clock this evening. "Then I still have 2 hours left. What shall we do? Do you have any Barbies here?" "No, I'm sorry." "Can I play games on your phone then?" Quinn frowned. "No, it's bad for your eyes." Cherry pouted in disappointment. She asked, "Grandpa Quinn, don't you have anything fun to do around here?" After being taken aback for a moment, he suddenly thought of something and answered, "Oh, yes, we do." At 5 o'clock that evening, Justin drove over to the school to pick up his son. He was feeling good and calm. He hoped that the school style had been a good match for Pete. He was looking forward to seeing his son shouting and kicking confidently with the rest of the students. With that in mind, he entered the school. He immediately saw a group of students dressed in white sportswear training in the compound. Next to them, his son was wearing a white princess dress and pointing at one of them with his eyes all lit up. "Grandpa Quinn, number 5 is the most handsome, but number 9 is also very cool. Who should I pick? I can't decide." Justin felt like his mind was cracking open. Meanwhile, Nora hadn't reached home yet. Instead, she was inside Guardian Pharmacy, a natural remedies shop. She selected some herbs and weighed them out on a scale. Atractylodus lancea, wolfberry, chrysanthemum, cornus, romania, dendrobium. After Nora adjusted the herbs' proportions, she handed them to the pharmacist and said, "Please use these to make up some pills, and use these to make an ointment for external usage. I'll come over and pick them up tomorrow." The pharmacist smiled as he replied, "Sure, no problem." Nora had been a generous customer. Of course he was happy to help. After that, Nora took Pete home. She had been too tired the day before to attend to the elderly Mrs. Anderson properly, but that morning she had performed a much more thorough assessment. She had found that the woman's loss of vision had been caused by strain and overwork, leading to optic nerve damage. There was no need for surgery. She just needed to be more careful and give herself time to recover. With the help of the GPS, Nora managed to find her way back to the Andersons. Before she even entered, she saw Melissa standing at the door. She was wearing a knitted dress and looked elegant and dignified. When she saw their car, her brows drew together in worry. It was only when she parked the car in front of the villa that Nora spotted a luxury Lincoln town car that was also parked there. She assumed that a wealthy guest must also be visiting. When she got out of the car, Melissa hurried over and said, "Nora, your other aunt heard you're here, so she came over to visit." In total, Mrs. Anderson had 2 daughters and a son. Nora's mother had been the eldest, while Simon was the 3rd child. In the middle was her 2nd child, Sheena Anderson. Nora nodded. She was about to take Pete with her and enter the house, when Melissa held her wrist and said apologetically, "She has a foul mouth. Whatever she says, don't take it to heart." Nora was taken aback for a moment. She could vaguely hear an arrogant voice coming through the door. Yet she married a man like that in the end. Her daughter grew up in California, far away from everybody. She has never even gone to college. Mum, you always said I wasn't as good as her, but look at us now. I've done much more for this family than she ever did, haven't I? Mrs. Anderson scolded her. How can you say things like that? It doesn't matter what Nora's done or not done. She's your sister's daughter. She's part of our family. Oh, please. We had to work so hard to recover the family's reputation after what her mother did. You'd better keep an eye on her and make sure she doesn't embarrass us too. Melissa coughed to gently announce that she and Nora were about to come in. Then she called out, "Mom, Sheena, Nora's back." Only then did Nora enter. She immediately saw an attractive, if pompous, woman who resembled Simon sitting on the sofa. Sheena was 46 years old, but she looked much younger. She was wearing a professional suit and carried herself with maturity and charm. But compared with Melissa's grace, she seemed sharp and bossy. After Nora entered, her gaze fell onto Pete right away. Assuming she was looking at Cherry, she asked disdainfully, "So this is your daughter? She must be 5 this year, right? Can she play the piano or dance? Can she do calligraphy? Well, little girl, do you take advanced math classes? What are your extracurricular activities?" Pete, who had been receiving an elite education since he was a toddler, was bewildered by her attitude.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.